Most scholars believe that Paul's first letter to the Thessalonians is the oldest writing in the New Testament. Paul visited Thessalonica on his travels, and he started what was probably a house church, not very big, and then moved on to Athens, Greece, where he might have written this first letter. Paul's letter is pastoral, it's encouraging, and it's hopeful. Let's hear what Paul has to say.
Hear these words from 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 9 through 12. Now concerning love of the brothers and sisters, you do not need to have anyone write to you, for you yourselves have been taught by God to love one another, and indeed you do love all the brothers and sisters throughout Macedonia. But we urge you, brothers and sisters, to do so more and more, to aspire to live quietly, to mind your own affairs, and to work with your hands as we directed you, so that you may behave properly toward outsiders and be dependent on no one. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
I am often asked the question, in one form or another, Reverend or Pastor, what do you see as the mission of the church? Sometimes people are referring to the capital C church, as in the church universal. Sometimes it's the small church, as in a particular congregation. I pause because some days, I confess, I feel ornerier than others, feeling a bit exasperated at the workings of the greater church, and I don't want to throw a zinger of an answer to the questioner from that space. And I also pause not wanting to spout sophisticated theological declarations about ecclesiology, which means study of the church, that could confuse, befuddle, and turn off the questioner. How then do I answer? One word: love. The mission of the capital C church and the mission of the small c church is to love. I find that love in the mission of Hazelwood Christian Church, which is sharing Christ with our community through service and relationships. In my mind, that equates to love as Christ in God is love. And we must never forget the great commandment given to us by Jesus: love one another. To love one another. Why is that so difficult? I wonder what Peter saw when he looked out around him before writing his letter to the early church some 2,000 years ago that we've been going through these last 6 weeks. Peter certainly did not see the church of today splintered into thousands and thousands of different denominations. No, those early Christians did not know the ease either with which we worship God and the ease of being in community with each other today. They were living into something completely new that did not place Caesar at the center of the universe, nor was the Jewish temple and the ways of being a practicing Jew at that time followed by the early church. Imagine the derision from family and friends and others who were steeped in the Roman way of life or in the Jewish religious way of life. And then Paul writing about those groaning and moaning, laboring birth pangs. It couldn't have been easy to be an early Christian. To bring something new, a new way of being into lived reality is a difficult process. It's a painful, painful process. So I imagine Peter writing in this tumult of newness, scratching his head as to the exact words that could inspire and shape the community to which he writes. What are the important ways of being with each other? What virtues should be first and foremost in the ways of life lived by the followers of Jesus Christ? We've been exploring the 7 virtues that Peter lists in what is his second letter to the church: excellence, knowledge, self-control, endurance, godliness, mutual affection, and love. And we are to practice living with these virtues so that, in Peter's words, we may become participants in the divine nature of God. We are created in the image of God. Let's live into that image. Today we explore mutual affection. In Greek, Philadelphia, literally brotherly love. Philia, love, Adelphos, brother. I've mentioned before from this pulpit the four main words for love found in the Greek language: storge, eros, agape, and philia. In English, we have love. Just love. We use love in sentences such as, I love Girl Scout Thin Mint cookies. I love mint chocolate chip ice cream. Are you catching a theme here? I love to read. I love my parents and brother. I love my wife. The loves in each of these declarations are certainly not commensurate with each other, though they use the same word, love. The Greeks, wisely I think, sought to differentiate between these types of love. The love of a Thin Mint cookie is not equivalent to the love of a spouse. Storge is the love of family. Eros is erotic or passionate love. Agape is selfless, unconditional, and even sacrificial love. Philia, which we find in today's virtue of Philadelphia, is the affectionate love found in the bonds of close friendship, like a brother or a sister in a family. Peter calls the Christian community to which he writes to love each other as if we are the closest of friends, who also share the deep common bond of knowing that Christ calls each of them friends, the bonds of mutual affection. So when I answer the question, what do you see as the mission of the church, my answer draws upon the understanding of philia and agape forms of love. One 3rd century commentator named Tertullian looked upon those first Christian communities and wrote, "Look how they love one another. Look how they love one another." Our understanding of love must begin with Philadelphia, with mutual affection for those in our household and our church community. It's a good place to start, brotherly and sisterly love. A church hired a new pastor. His first sermon in the new church was on the subject of brotherly and sisterly love. After the service, the elders came to him with absolute glowing praise. "We are so glad you responded to God's call and became our new preacher. We've heard a lot of preachers over the years, and that was the best sermon we have ever heard." The new pastor accepted their praise graciously and thanked them for their kind words. The very next Sunday, this new pastor preached the very same sermon on brotherly and sisterly love with the same enthusiasm, passion, and encouragement. Again, the elders came to see him after the service to let him know what they thought. "Well, Pastor, another fine job. We'll see you next week." Once again, he thanked the elders for their support. On the 3rd Sunday, the exact same brotherly and sisterly love sermon was preached by that pastor to the same congregation in the same manner, 3 weeks in a row. The elders of the church took him aside this time. "Pastor, we know you love the subject of brotherly and sisterly love, and you're certainly excellent at teaching it. But we would like to know if you're going to give a sermon on a different subject anytime soon." The pastor thought about it for a moment and replied, "Well, that depends. Are you going to start loving each other anytime soon?" Oh, my. You'll note that I have not preached the same sermon on brotherly and sisterly love here. I rejoice in the love found here at Hazelwood. Well, here's the rub, though, about brotherly and sisterly love. We can be meaner and nastier to those in our own house, our own family, in a way that we wouldn't think of in the midst of complete strangers. To family members, we can yell and scream and carry on and go after each other with hockey sticks, maybe even to the unfortunate point of being physically or emotionally abusive to each other. Outside our house, we're kind, considerate. Others point to us and say, "What a fine, moral, and righteous person he or she is," while those who live with us in our household know otherwise. It's the same dynamic that gives churches a bad rap today. "Oh," some people say, "churches can be so nasty and ugly I can't see how they can even call themselves Christian when all they do is fight and bicker and hurt each other and condemn people who are different and don't abide by their rules. It's a strange and mystifying result of human community. And it's one that Peter calls us to take care of first in his list. If we can't love each other in our own house, we won't be able to love anybody outside of our house. We may be able to get away with it in the eyes of society, but not in God's eyes. And oh, how the greater Christian community, the capital C church, is so fractured today. I can sit with some members of the Jewish community and Muslim community and be more comfortable with them than I can with other Christians of different stripes of denominations, to which I scratch my head. It seems as though we can't even agree on the definition of love as Christians, let alone brotherly and sisterly love. And it's not easy in today's culture of me, and my way, or the highway, red, blue, woke, you name it. How to love when you feel as though you're being condemned all the time by others. It is not an easy thing to do, but one in which we are called to do. Paul writes to the church in Thessalonica, encouraging them in brotherly and sisterly love in Philadelphia. Love each other and love the greater church in Macedonia, he writes. Let your love keep on expanding more and more in growing circles of love. And in the midst of a hostile environment, Paul gives us 3 actions to follow: to aspire to live quietly, to mind your own affairs, and to work with your hands. A not so easy thing to do when the noise around us is so loud and can be so hurtful to us and to others. And paradoxically, perhaps it is an easy thing to do, to live quietly, to mind our own affairs, and to work with our hands, so that in doing so, others may look upon us and declare, look how they love each other. May it be so.